We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Monday. We're starting out a new week. Of course, I'm recording this late Monday night, so I don't know what's happening yet this week. We're still hearing about this royal family thing over in England, and I still don't fucking care. We'll see what happens. I know they're creating a lot of interest and a lot of intrigue about it. Oh, what could be happening? I don't know. I don't care. And whatever happens, I don't know how it affects me or you or any of us here in this country other than the whole gossip part of it. For those of you that are in Britain right now listening, thinking, how can you say that? Because I'm in fucking America. We got a couple problems here I'm more worried about at this point. All right. We are headed into this show. We're going to check in with some um, emails, of course, and we've got some other news that's going along. We heard about Donald Trump. I think I talked about it yesterday. How Donald Trump gave a speech in front of a crowd in Dayton, Ohio. And he said a lot of things, some of it even understandable. A lot of it wasn't. He really is losing a step. He's slipping down the slippery slope as we speak. But he came out with this thing that if he doesn't get elected, there's going to be a bloodbath. Now, needless to say, that freaks some fucking people out. It's not very often you hear a candidate for the presidency of the United States make violent threats against the country. I don't know. It's just something you don't normally see. Funny thing is, the Republicans have come out and done exactly what I suggested they do. Oh, that's not what he meant. You're taking it out of context. What he really meant was, and as I said yesterday, why is it we have to translate everything that Donald Trump says? Why can't he just say what he means? Now, what they're suggesting is, though, he was talking about the auto industry. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, here's the thing. You can make it or spin it to something else if you like. But here's what I do know. We've heard a lot from Michael Cohen, who was Donald Trump's lawyer, and he's very well aware of Donald Trump's strategies and the way he talks. And Michael Cohen told us something that we should take note of when we think about this last speech. He said Donald Trump never comes out and says exactly what he wants. He speaks in kind of a code. He infers things, and people are supposed to pick up on it. Now, people will say, well, that's not what he was doing. Well, he's got a history of doing that. Want me to give you an example? Let's go back to prior to January 6th, the insurrection. Remember what Donnie said? Oh, y'all got to come out there. Make sure y'all come because it's going to be wild. Well, how prophetic was he? How did he possibly know it would get as wild as what it did? Well, it got that wild, and he knew because that was his plan. Now, whether he was talking about the automotive industry or whatever the fuck he is, you use the term bloodbath. That is a dog whistle. That is an inference. That is something that's going to get his dumb fucks wired up. The good news about it is, though, I don't think there are going to be any large crowds attacking anything this time around. There's too much to go up against with Joe Biden in the presidential office, National Guard, and all those things. They don't have the situation rigged like they did when Donald Trump was in control and just let them do whatever they want. They aren't going to get away with that again, and they know that, so they're unlikely to get together in mass and attack anything. Now, that said, there might be some weirdos or wackos that come out of nowhere every now and again, and we've got to be aware of that, and we've got to be careful of that. Mainly, we've got to take Donald Trump out of the narrative. This is something I've been saying all along since Joe Biden took office. The longer we allow him to speak, allow him to control the narrative, the more problems we're going to have. Now, whether they take him out of the narrative by finding him guilty of a felony and putting the motherfucker in jail, putting a gag order on that motherfucker, and then when he doesn't comply, put him in jail, something has to be done. Because as long as that dumb fuck is talking, there is danger in this country. All right, let's check some emails. Hi, Mike. Regarding the ban on TikTok and the reasons, I feel that several things can be true at one time. One thing that I feel they are attempting to ban it is we are getting unfiltered information before the media can put a spin on it. I think that's very true. We're getting direct information, we're getting factual information, and they don't have an opportunity to spin it. The media certainly does that, and the government has every reason in the world to want to do that. They only want us to know or feel how they want to, and we are getting takes and seeing unflattering events in real time. People are waking up to who and what the real issues are, and the narrative isn't being controlled. I've learned things on TikTok that a college educated woman, was never taught, and it changed my worldview. That's what they fear, a society that is well informed and able to make decisions based on facts, not other people's opinions. Just my thoughts, E. Well, E, you're absolutely right. The other thing they like to do is divide us. And how do they do that? They say, you people are Republicans and you people are Democrats and you don't agree. So you must fight amongst each other. The bottom line is we're all Americans and live in this country. We all have needs for the same things. If we had the intelligence to come together and just fight for ourselves, we'd all be better off and the government officials would be far worse off. See, that's the thing. It's real easy to say, oh, let's give the rich people money because it's going to help us through trickle down. Well, half the country isn't going to believe it, but half of the dumb fucks are. So now you've got these heads, these loggerheads, and nothing gets done. Or they find a way to twist it and turn it and get what they want done. E, you're absolutely right. They don't want us informed and they don't want us unifying because once that happens, they have no control. And it's getting closer to that every fucking day. And it makes them nervous. You can whine and cry about China finding out information about us, stealing data and all that stuff, but we know that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is already doing that. We know Russia is getting to us by way of those apps. China could be too. Everybody's data mining our fucking information. So if you're going to shut down TikTok, you might as well shut down all of social media. And I dare you to fucking try that. I think they probably would love to shut down the social media because it's not helping them at this point. All right. Next one says, hi, Mike. Is the TikTok account rational boomer _1 a copycat account? Yes. Any account that says something other than rational boomer is a copycat account. If you're unsure, go to their profile page and find out how many followers they have. If they have less than 316,000 followers, it ain't me. I have one account. I'm not going to ask you to buy crypto or any crazy shit. It's not me. Now, people would say, why don't you complain and get them taken down? Motherfucker, I've been complaining for months. Other people have been complaining for months, and TikTok doesn't give a fuck. I tried a little test yesterday. I think I may have talked about this. You know, I will get DMs all the time, and a lot of them are fairly nasty name calling DMs. Normally, I ignore them and block them. But one time, I got a little fed up, and the guy said something pretty bad, and I said, fuck yourself, and I blocked him. Well, within a couple of days, I've got I got notice that I was being banned just from DMs, not from posting, but just from DMs. And I must have been banned a month or so. Actually, it was kind of nice getting a bit of rest from all the DMs. So yesterday, I had somebody come in my DMs and say some horrible shit to me. And instead of calling them a name, I went and I reported them for doing the same thing I did, reported them, and then I blocked them. Within a couple of hours later, I heard from TikTok and they said, we found no violation. Well, isn't that ironic? These motherfuckers can say whatever they want to me, and I can't respond to an insult, a serious insult. That's the thing with TikTok. You just have to know what you're dealing with and play the game to your advantage. TikTok, I enjoy TikTok. I have a lot of respect and appreciation for all the people that follow me on TikTok. But TikTok is a means to an end in realistic terms. TikTok isn't something that's going to go on forever and ever. It may get banned. Who knows what happens, or it goes out of style. The whole point for me for TikTok was to get on there, get a following, and then get people to come over to the podcast. And that's worked to a certain extent. Of course, we don't have the same amount of people listening to the podcast as we do TikTok, but it's growing pretty quickly, and I'm happy to see it. So we just play the game like TikTok wants the game played. It may or may not be fair, but it's their app, so they can make the rules or disregard rules if they like. The email continues on. I don't know if I would waste my time talking to that HVAC Jeff. He's full of himself, and I feel that he will just overtalk you, and it will be a circus. He also cannot back up what he says with any credible references. That's my 2 cents worth. Well, I understand what you're saying about overtalking me, but a lot of people thought that too when he was on the podcast. Didn't work out well for him. Because as much as I'm a Democrat and a liberal, I have a tendency or an ability to talk like a Republican. I don't have many skills in this world, but talking is one of them. Nobody's going to talk longer or louder than I am, and nobody's going to talk over me. Now, he wants me to come on his live, presumably to get some more viewers, because he hasn't done too well. Since I last saw him, he's maybe gained 150 followers in a period of 8, 9 months. Something's not going right. But I honestly think his interest is only to get more followers. He wants me to come on the live, and he wants to he says, let's make it fair and decent and a good conversation. And I said to him, I said, how can I have a good conversation with you when you're doing nothing but lying? He says, see, we can't be argumentative like that. I said, no, wait a minute. Here's the fucking deal. If you're lying, I can't negotiate and compromise with you. If you continue to lie and say bullshit or try to talk over me, then all the gloves are off and I'm coming at you. You've already experienced what it was like on the podcast, and I went really easy on you. I regret going that easy on you. So it'll be interesting to see. I'll go on the live for a little bit. I'll give you a heads up so we can kind of get some other normal people in there, and we'll just bury this motherfucker. I'm not in a mood to feel sorry for him if he's a nice guy or whatever. He's doing what he's doing either for followers or because he wants to promote Donald Trump. And either way, I'm insulted by it. So he needs to get his ass kicked. The email continues on. Jacques and I are now in Yuma for a few days. Sunny and a bit of a breeze off and on. Give my best to your wife and keep those adorable stories of Junie coming. Gracie. Well, thank you, Gracie. I love telling the stories about little Junie. She is such a freaking character. We were at my brother's house the other day for one of my grandnephew's birthdays. I think I talked about this. Moment she walked in the door, she's putting on a show. She's dancing. She's doing all this stuff. She wanted to do her special dance. I think I've told you about this before. Sometimes I'll put on songs on my phone that she can dance to. Frankly, she doesn't have much rhythm. She's got a lot of talents, but singing and dancing aren't a couple of them. Anyway, she tries real hard and she's pretty fun when she's doing it. But the song she loves is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. It's a good poppy song from back in the day. But the reason she likes it so much, other than it being poppy and fun to dance to, is the beginning of the song starts out jitterbug, jitterbug, jitterbug. Well, Grandma and I changed it to Junebug. So now she thinks it's her song. And whenever we're someplace, like at my brother's house, we've got to play it so people can hear her song and so she can show them how well she dances. It's fucking hilarious. All right. Thank you, Gracie. I appreciate it. Next email says, "Hey, Mike, saw your TikTok on Republicans infighting, and I've seen it firsthand here in Texas. My House Rep, Tony Gonzalez, before Super Tuesday, was running against someone even worse, Brandon Herrera. How can I tell I got a campaign text to meet Herrera and Matt Gaetz? Texted back and told them all I'm voting all Democrat and to fuck off and lose my number, like I told the Haley campaign a few weeks back. They face a runoff soon, so it ain't about to stop now." Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those texts keep coming. Gonzalez was attacked for working with the other side and being a centrist. So what does he do? Stand up to those opposing him. No go and campaign against Biden and his open borders. So I can see why Mike Johnson is trying to get them to not attack each other, because he knows it's turning off independents and Republicans who are not MAGA. Plus, the ex Republican voters like myself, they will never get back. The Dems and Joe are in better shape than advertised. Forget the polls. The donations should be more of a telling story. Here's an article I read on Raw Story that pretty much highlights how much trouble Republicans are in. No wonder they want to stop Biden from giving the State of the Union. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? Too late. You ain't going to be running the House next time this year. Those worried about November, calm down. Turn off mainstream media, MSNBC as well, and turn on the Rational Boomer. Till next time, your buddy from Texas, Jace. Thank you. Thank you for the promotion, and thank you for your input. And I couldn't agree with you more. You hear the polls, but when you look at the infighting with the Republicans, the lack of money with the Republicans, the prosecution of Donald Trump, the embracing of overturning Roe v. Wade, and all this stuff, this is why I say there's really no reason, no factual reason why the Republicans can win much at all in November. I get people calling me or coming to me saying, I know what you're saying and I believe you and I hope you're right, but I'm still worried. What what can I do? It's what I've told you before. People in the media, people in the government are playing off your emotions and your fear. Put it this way: the things they're making you fearful of, the things they're making you mad about or worried about, are things you can't do much with. All you can do is what you do. And if all you can do is vote, then fucking vote. If you can tell a few people and vote, do that. Don't worry about the big picture. It's all falling in place for the Democrats, and the Republicans are going off the fucking cliff. All right, next email. Hey, Mike, haven't reached out in a while because I feel I don't need to echo everything that we all know, but Sunday's podcast was perfect for me. I don't drink the Kool-Aid of any party. Put your priest collar on, but I thought I was a Republican when my kids were 3 and 1. Then funny thing happened. A Republican told me my 401k does way better when a Democrat is in office. My kids are 27 and 24 now. This was 25 years ago, so the internet was dialed up and I was able to see it. Wow, it opened my eyes. I thought the Republicans were about fiscal responsibility. I was wrong and bailed off that ship because the data was telling me different. You're so right in telling people not to be identified with the party. It's like um, giving a monkey, he says guy, but I think he means gun, giving a monkey a gun. You can't blame the monkey if he shoots you. I believe that MAGA is the threat right now, but fuck Democrats if they get power and don't do anything for the middle and lower class. The best economy is money in the working class hands, not billionaire hands. Keep chopping on the fucking Trump-la-fucks, Darren. And you're absolutely right, Darren. That is my greatest fear, is that the Democrats will get power in the House and the Senate, then they'll get lazy. They'll say, oh, yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. And if people say, oh, they'd never do that. Well, they did it with codifying Roe v. Wade. I'm not saying they're doing it or going to do it. I'm just saying that we need to be constantly fighting this thing. Because as I've told you, we've got to put the wildfire out first, and then we can deal with the smaller problems. But one of the reasons we are in the position we are in currently is because we as constituents of this country have never really been engaged. We elected people. It was all pretty much popularity contest. We voted for them. They got into office, and then we said, well, they know better. Let them do their job. But what have we found out as of late? They don't know better. Or maybe they do know better, um, but they're going to do whatever they want as opposed to what they should be doing, and that's working for us. That's why I'm saying I'm not saying the Democrats are horrible people. They're much better people than the Republican people, but they're far from perfect. And if we let up, um, they might get lazy on us. So be prepared for that. Thank you, Darren. Next one comes from James. How is it that Trump, the terrorist, is allowed to make threats of violence like when he said this weekend that if he isn't reelected, there will be a bloodbath in America? If any ordinary citizen said that, the FBI would be knocking at their door. Merrick Garland needs to be replaced immediately. If he had done his job on March 2021 when he was sworn in, Trump would be irrelevant at this point. James, another boomer, 1961. Year younger than me. I was born in 60. And you're absolutely right. Donald Trump has gotten treated with kid gloves. He's gotten away with so many things. And all this really does is tell people that our judicial system is fucked. And I'm just going to say it. It is fucked. When we look at all the bullshitting around and the appeals and the Supreme Court and all this stuff, our judicial system is in bad shape. We thought it was much better prior to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has exposed the weaknesses and the lack of teeth that our judicial system has. And that's a real problem. That's one of the many problems we have to fix once the Democrats get control. We need to tighten things up. We need to push the truth that not everybody follows, but keeps telling us no one is above the law. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the fact that you say no one is above the law is a bunch of bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And we've got to change that and make that the rule as opposed to the rule for all of us. And there's a different rule for wealthy and powerful people. All right. Thank you for that email, or James. All right, the next one says, hello, Mike. Before I ask my question, please allow me to shout. Now, I'm not going to shout. I got my wife sleeping in back, but he wrote it in all caps. So no, this is intended to be shouted. Fuck the motherfucker racist MAGA fucking Republicans. I second the motion. He says, now that I've got that out of my chest, as you know, hypocrite Jeff Jackson is running for the attorney general position in North Carolina. What are the local and national consequences if this position goes to a MAGA Republican? Is that something for the people in other states to worry about? Thank you for everything you do. Sincerely, Joe. Well, thank you, Joe. Is it important? Yeah, I would guess it's important. The attorney general has some bearing on the laws of North Carolina, of course. I don't know if they have any bearing on the election. That would be more the Secretary of State. It'll be interesting to see if Jeff Jackson gets in. I have a particular hard on for Jeff Jackson. Comes on TikTok, acts like a nice, reasonable guy, and apparently he is. He gained a lot of notoriety from being on TikTok. He had over 2 million followers. And then he has the audacity to vote against a vote for the ban against TikTok. And that just seemed a little hypocritical to me. Now, I know a lot of people who love this guy, either from TikTok or from North Carolina, get mad at me because I'm being rough on him, canceling him. And I explain to people, look, I'm just a guy in my living room talking some shit. I don't have the power or the position to cancel anybody. but I do have the opportunity to speak my mind. And if I think Jeff Jackson is a hypocritical piece of shit, I'm going to say it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to fucking listen to it. Um, Jeff Jackson just exposed himself to being just like all the rest of the politicians. Say one thing, do the other. Not support what people want, think that he knows better. Now, you can put it any way you want, but that's what happened. And that's a problem for me. And if I see a politician doing it, no matter how shiny his face, how bright his smile, I'm not buying it. He lost my respect. He lost my trust. Not that he ever really had it, because he didn't impact me directly. You know, he was in the House, so we could use his votes in some cases, but we know the Republicans always went against the Democrats. So the Democrats, somebody like Jeff Jackson, will always vote with the Democrats. The Republicans won't. As long as we don't have the majority, it doesn't really matter. So Jeff Jackson, he got gerrymandered out of his seat in the House of Representatives. That's why he's running for Attorney General. Is he going to win? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that it has any impact on the election or anything else. He's the Attorney General in North Carolina if he wins. If MAGA wins, well, the people that are going to suffer in that case would be North Carolinians. And I know this sounds a little rough, but I've said this to people before, whether we're talking about voting for the president or voting for an attorney general in a state. If you, as a state or a country, vote for a dumb fuck to get in office, well, then you deserve what you get. You put yourself there. Finding out later that you made the wrong choice isn't good enough. You're stuck for 2 or 4 or 6 years. That's why you need to look into things before you make your vote. That's what happened with Donald Trump. Donald Trump seemed like a viable option to establishment politics, meaning Hillary Clinton. How bad could it be? Well, we found out how bad it could be. And if you vote a MAGA in any position, whether it be a state office or a federal office, it's going to be bad. So just know that going in when you cast your votes. And if you vote for a MAGA fuck, don't come crying later. You got what you deserve. All right, the next one says, "Hi, Mike. I apologize. I've missed a few of your recent podcasts, so you might have covered this, and I missed it. If so, simply toss the email. This is commentary reflecting possibilities, not known fact. I did hear your latest podcast where you spoke of the former guy's desperate need for cash. I believe this is when he's most dangerous because he could be bought. I suspect TikTok may have bought his support of them in deference to the current legislation passed by the House and headed to the Senate. He has flipped in his position on this, and we all know that money talks. This is also gossip about a certain brewing company tired of the anti-woke position of MAGAs in relation to the purchase of their light beer, getting him to change his tune because the company agreed to hold a $10,000 plate fundraiser dinner for him. Similarly, it could be that the foreign governments are willing to buy him off as well. Top secrets still in the former guy's position would be in danger, continued influence against Ukrainian support. There may be many dangerous financial options for the former guy. Again, I have no proof and hate to think of myself as a conspiracy theorist, but I think he has non-traditional ways to raise money. And I don't believe he has a moral compass that would keep him from using them. He may not end up in such a grim financial position as first thought. Denise. Well, Denise, let me say this. Yes, he could get money from Russia, Saudi Arabia, from TikTok. But what's the return? These people just don't give out money just because Donnie's their favorite guy. There's got to be some return. Now, some might say, well, if he gets to be president, then he can offer them favors. And that's true. But Denise, he's not going to be president. He's not even going to be close in the race. If he is, in fact, the nominee, he's not going to win in November. No facts show that he has a chance of winning. So there's really nothing to gain other than, maybe noise in the ether right now. And maybe that's what TikTok wants, something to kick back against so they don't get banned. I also don't think TikTok's going to get banned because when it gets to the Senate and these senators who are a little sharper than the representatives realize that 170 million Americans are on TikTok, that's not a wise move before an election. They're not going to do it. I just don't see them doing it. It would be incredibly stupid. Now, politicians are stupid, but you would hope at least that the Democrats would have enough sense not to pursue this once it got to the Senate. And as I've told you before about the TikTok thing, this is a long process. Say it passes the Senate and say Joe Biden signs off on it. Okay. Nothing gets banned right away. First of all, they get 6 months to try to sell it. Probably won't sell it. I don't even know if they can legally sell it. But then after that 6 month period, they don't flip a switch and it doesn't go off. They take TikTok out of the Android store and the Apple store, meaning new people can't get the app and you can't update your app. But that doesn't shut anything down for probably another year. So we're looking at a year and a half out before this happens. And then, of course, you've got the Donald Trump effect. You're going to have lawsuits and you're going to have stays and you're going to have all this stuff. This could be 2 or 3 years down the road. The reason they're doing this has nothing to do with actually shutting it down. It's trying to make the noise and hopefully getting support for it. But what I think they're finding out is there really is no support for it when half the country is on the app. So it will slowly dissolve and nothing will be done with it. I'll be surprised if Schumer even puts it up for a vote. It'll sit on the desk with all of Mitch McConnell's old bills, never to be heard from again. I really believe that would be the case. That's the only smart thing for them to do at this point. Because if they do cancel TikTok, it's going to be devastating for the Republicans and the Democrats if they participate in it. You saw what happened to Jeff Jackson for simply voting against it. Keep in mind, there were 150 Democrats that voted against TikTok in that vote. A lot of them a lot of them represent you. They're probably trying to avoid being found out about that, but we can find out about all those motherfuckers. Not worried about the TikTok thing. I'm really not. It makes no sense for them to shut it down. They're going to talk a big game, try to bully their way through, try to get TikTok to sell off. And it's not to save us from China and their data mining of our stuff. It's to comply with the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Twitters. These people hate TikTok because TikTok is kicking their ass. They want to get rid of the competition or at least own the competition. And they put enough money into the members of Congress that they are doing their bidding. This is all a fucking pointless mess that's not going to do anybody any good. So I suspect if even anything does happen in the Senate, we're a year and a half minimum out of anything happening. And then, of course, we'll have the election and the whole atmosphere changes. The whole culture changes. Don't worry too much about that. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. All right, we are back on the Rational Boomer podcast talking about some stories that have been going on the last couple of days. We're coming out of a weekend. So things are typically a little slow during the weekends, not a lot of new news. We get some crazy shit, Donald Trump calling for a bloodbath, but Other than that, it's not quite as busy as it is during the week. And since we're in the later hours of Sunday night, we have yet to see what is to come on Monday. All right. Now, Donald Trump, as I said, calling for a bloodbath, trying to say, well, that's not what I meant. But that's always what he says. It's not what I meant. It's a joke. Didn't you get the joke? Let me explain to you where Donald Trump is. Is Donald Trump specifically trying to be violent? Well, he might be because he's desperate. He needs something big to happen in order to find any hope of keeping his head above water. But I'll tell you something about narcissists. Narcissists always speak this way. They only talk in extremes. It's all either the worst or the absolute best. When Donald Trump is talking about anything, he wants it to be the absolute worst. He'll say something like bloodbath or a hoax or the worst thing that's ever happened in history. That's what he always does. And then when he goes the other way, it's the same thing. I think I've told you this story before. I learned this long time ago. My father being a narcissist, not dissimilar to Donald Trump. I remember being a little kid, being like 10 years old, okay? And say I did something wrong, something stupid, something wrong, 10 years old. You do stupid shit. If I would do something stupid being 10 years old, my father would say to me, Jesus Christ, you're 11 years old and you're fucking up like this. And I think to myself, well, I'm 10. But he had to make it sound worse. Or if I wanted to do something, I'd go to him and say, yeah, Dad, can I do this? Jesus Christ, you're only 9 years old. So he diminished my age. He went extreme either way. He wasn't accurate at all, but he needed to do that in order to make his point. That is what Donald Trump is doing now. Donald Trump is mentally diminished. He has trouble pulling together words. So all he can do is come up with these extreme phrases. He maybe didn't even mean to say a bloodbath, but that's the only thing that popped in his mind that would give the effect that he wanted to give. He wanted to show that this is the absolute worst situation. Now, that's not to say Donald Trump doesn't have a violent side, because we know he does. Just take a look at January 6th. But keep in mind, we're dealing with somebody who is diminished, somebody who is mentally ill, somebody who has limited cognitive ability and limited verbal skills. I mean, even more so than he's had over his lifetime. Never been the most articulate guy, but it's getting worse every day. And this is what we're seeing every day. I'll give you another example. Former President Donald Trump said that the members of the House Select Committee that investigated the January 6th Capitol insurrection should be jailed. Why is that even up for debate right now? The January 6th committee is long done. Is he mad because they had the audacity to uncover the crimes he's committed? Well, I guess so. Trump's remarks come less than a week after a new report from the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight revealed that a Secret Service agent gave testimony that contradicted previous testimony from former White House staffer Cassidy Hutchinson. Now, in a Sunday post on the Truth Social, Trump linked an article from the right-leaning website Just the News, which claimed that the January 6th committee withheld crucial evidence from the public. Now, they've been saying this for a long time, but we know all the evidence was not only handed over to the DOJ, but posted online. It's a bunch of bullshit. Never happened. There was nothing held back. The article also said that former Representative Liz Cheney interviewed the Secret Service agent, whose testimony was just released as part of the report. He, of course, went on to say Cheney should go to jail along with the rest of the Unselect Committee, Trump wrote. Of course, Trump is facing numerous legal challenges, including the one examining his role in the 2021 attack. Cassidy Hutchinson, the January 6th committee star witness, previously said that during the attack, Trump was in a car with others when he reportedly tried to grab the steering wheel to head towards the Capitol. Now, he wants to argue about this. Now, whether that happened or not is besides the point. If it did that, it showed kind of his state of mind, but doesn't change the crime he committed in his speeches. But this is what Donald Trump will do. He'll pick out little things and try to prove them wrong as if that's going to help him. This dumb motherfucker doesn't even know that it's not going to help him. The driver of the car, a Secret Service agent, disputed Hutchinson's account. I did not see Trump reach. He never grabbed the steering wheel. I didn't see him, lunge to try to get in the front seat at all. The Secret Service agent previously said, according to the new report, as per The Hill. Liz Cheney, vice chairwoman of the January 6th committee, responded on X. That's what she said. Hi, Donald. These are lies. You have had all grand jury and January 6 transcripts for many months, she wrote. You're trying to halt your 1/6 trial because your VP, White House counsel, White House aides, campaign and DOJ officials, etc., will testify against you. You're afraid of the truth, and you should be. You got to love Liz Cheney. Would never vote for the bitch, but she's a tough woman. And it's too bad Liz Cheney didn't run in the primaries. Would love to see a debate between Liz Cheney and Donald Trump. It would be an absolute massacre. All right, yesterday was Russian voting day. Yeah, I bet that was fair. Turned out that Vladimir Putin received 88% of the vote, in spite of the fact he's driven that country into war and into poverty, and people have no money or food or anything like that. But still, 88% of them voted for Vladimir Putin. I'm sure Donald Trump's sitting somewhere going, now that's how to run a fucking election. That's how he'd like the election to run, but it's not going to. Now, Russians crowded outside polling stations at midday on Sunday, the last day of the presidential election, apparently heeding an opposition call to protest against President Vladimir Putin in a vote that offered them no real alternatives. Putin is poised to extend his nearly quarter of a century rule for 6 more years after a relentless crackdown on dissent. And earlier returns announced after polls closed in Russia showed him he had 88% of the vote, with 24% of the precincts counted, according to Russia's Central Election Committee. Now, the election took place amid attacks within Russia by Ukrainian missiles and drones, which have killed several people. Polling happened in a tightly controlled environment where Putin only faces competitions from 3 token rivals, and any public criticism of him or his war in Ukraine, of course, is stifled. Now, Putin's fiercest political foe was Alexei Navalny. He died in an Arctic prison last month, and other critics are either in jail or in exile, beyond the fact that the voters have virtually no choice. Independent monitoring of the election is extremely limited. And this is exactly what Donald Trump wants. He wants to game the election. He wants to be a dictator. Because frankly, at this point, the only way he's going to get elected into an office if there is a lot of fraud and he is a dictator. Unfortunately, Donald Trump isn't as smart or as powerful as Vladimir Putin. He's an idiot, he's a fool, and he will fail. Navalny's associates urged those unhappy with Putin or the war to protest by coming to the polls at noon on Sunday. And lines outside a number of polling stations, both inside Russia and at its embassies around the world, appeared to swell at the time. But to no motherfucking avail. Vladimir Putin will still win, in spite of the fact that most of the people in this country, or that country, don't want him to be president. And who would? He's a crazy, stupid motherfucker. Now, here's the thing that's frustrating me. We've been hearing about how he's ill, how he has cancer, he's only got a short time. I'm still waiting, motherfucker. Let's get this over with. Let's get him gone and done. Now, when he does go and when he is done, chances are he won't, whoever takes his place won't be much better. But we do need to get Vladimir Putin out of there. He is a problem not only for his own country, he's destroying his own country, but he's putting the rest of the world in danger, certainly the NATO people and certainly Ukraine. And he can only thank the Republicans for the help they've given him. The Republicans apparently support Vladimir Putin. They support a dictator. They support a rigged election in spite of what they've talked about with 2020. So Vladimir Putin will be the president for the foreseeable future. Let's get some money to Ukraine so we can push that motherfucker back and get him kicked out of business. He should not be the president of Russia. He should not be in power. And I think the vast majority of people in Russia agree. But in spite of that, because he's a dictator and because it's all rigged, much like Donald Trump would like to have it, he's currently in office. And that's fucked up. Now, we keep hearing about polls, allegedly Donald Trump winning in polls and such. And I find that hard to believe for a number of reasons. And I've mentioned that before. But here's another fact that we're finding out and would tell you, how in the fuck does Donald Trump win? How in the fuck does any Republican win? A number of Americans who identify as Republicans has never, ever been lower than what we have right now. And Senate Republicans, they're starting to get a little freaked out about it. In an advertisement posted to social media this week, the Senate GOP promoted a survey that includes the question, have you left the Republican Party? The post also includes a caption under a banner that says, for your eyes only. President Trump's sham trials are underway, and we need help of every patriot possible. The ad says the number of Americans who identify as Republicans has never been lower in history. The ad from the National Republican Senatorial Committee continues, our democracy is crumbling, and this is dire. Yeah, they're nervous as a motherfucker at this point. They're low on money. They're low on voters. They're low on results. They support Roe v. Wade. They support Russia. They support giving money to the wealthy. Now that we're in a world where we have social media and all this information comes out and they can't try to cover it up, divert or distract or whatever they want to do. They can't do that anymore. We all know too much. And when we know as much as we do about the Republicans, how can anybody say they have a shot in November? Now, Donald Trump and his allies may say that the former president was taken out of context in his warning of a bloodbath for the country if he loses the election. But former New Jersey Republican Governor Christine Todd Whitman appeared on MSNBC, the Sunday show with Jonathan Capehart, where she was asked about Trump saying there would be a bloodbath for the whole country. Earlier in the day, a White House correspondent argued that it was clear Trump's comments referred to more than just the auto industry. And as I've said before, that's so typical of Donald Trump. We know Michael Cohen says he never says anything directly. He talks in code, he infers things, and he certainly did that in that speech. So Capehart asked, so Governor Whitman, you know he loves to mush a lot of stuff in what he says. Then his campaign says he was only joking, or it was taken out of context, or he wasn't talking about violence on the country. I call BS on that. Am I wrong? The host asked. Christine Todd Whitman says you are absolutely right. That is a BS. That is BS on that. She continued saying Trump was definitely sending a call to his supporters to have a reprise of the January 6th insurrection. Even worse, when he says bloodbath, that means more of the weapons we saw on January 6th, she added. It's appalling to have an ex-president. Former is for someone who just left. Ex is for someone who was beaten and taken out of the White House, an ex-president of the United States, to say that and follow it up with, it would be the end of elections as we know it. He's putting out some pretty dire shit to suggest it's not about riling up the Trumplafucks and maybe trying to incite some violence. That's absolutely ridiculous. You can hear it in his voice. You can hear it in his words. Finally, she noted that Trump is being very clear on what he plans to do if he's back in power. Shame on us if we ignore this. It happened back in the 30s when a fellow called Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. Now, Donald Trump would probably write his own Mein Kampf, but he'd need a fucking ghostwriter to do it because he has a little trouble with English. All right, Fox News host Howard Kurtz issued a correction on Sunday after former President Donald Trump claimed Democrats perform abortions after birth. I've heard so many Republicans say that, and it's just absolutely a lie. A fucking lie. But they say it to try to incite and scare people. Now, during an interview on Fox News, Kurtz asked Trump if his 16-week abortion ban could become law. Trump noted that justices we appointed to the Supreme Court had helped to destroy Roe v. Wade abortion protections. They did, and they did something that from a lot of standpoints is extremely good. Number one, the Democrats are the radicals on this issue because it's okay to have an abortion in 7 to 8 and 9 months and even after birth, Trump opined. We want to help women with Roe. You take a look at what was going on, abortions in the 7th, 8th, and 9th month. One thing that you say is nobody wants that killing of a baby after the baby is born. Yeah, that's not a thing. Trump pointed to a remark made by former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. Following the interview, Kurtz issued a correction. It said, on late-term abortions, former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam did say that in cases of severe deformity or a non-viable fetus, the mother and doctors would decide what to do when the baby was born, Kurtz explained, but later backed off with a spokesperson saying he was not talking about killing babies, but extremely rare and tragic cases. A CDC survey says fewer than 1% of all abortions take place at or after 7 months of pregnancy. So what Donald Trump said was an out-and-out lie with the intention of inciting people and scaring people and angering people. But the fact is, it's not true. It never was true. It never will be true, regardless of what's going on with Roe v. Wade. They're in a bad position because they've got 70 to 75% of this country that disagree with them on Roe v. Wade. So now they have to try to make it look bad and give an excuse as to why they overturned Roe v. Wade. Not going to work. Not going to work. You don't piss off 75% of the country and take away rights from 50% of the country, that being women, and expect to win anything. We saw what happened in 2022. It'll be worse in 2024. All right. Holding on to his leadership position by the slimmest of margins due to retirements and special election seat losses, House Speaker Mike Johnson is being forced to warn members of the caucus to knock it off because some of them are interfering in their colleagues' primary campaigns. Isn't that great? They have no money. They have all kinds of problems. And now they're fighting amongst themselves. They're trying to hurt one another. If I'm a Democrat, I step back and say, have at it, boys and girls. We'll just watch. Now, according to a report from CNN's Manu Raju and Melanie Zanona, the Republican Party lawmaker, admitted he is growing frustrated with the excuse me, a little hiccup there. Civil war within his own party, causing him to deal with member on member attacks that threaten to create even more chaos during his tenure. Yeah, he's not looking too good in this situation. Now, I was speaking with CNN. Johnson stated he had to caution attendees at last week's sparsely attended GOP retreat in West Virginia. I've asked them all to cool it. I'm vehemently opposed to member on member action in primaries because it's not productive. Oh, no shit. And it causes division for obvious reasons, and we should not be engaging in that, he complained. So I'm telling everyone who's doing that to knock it off. And both sides, they'll say, well, we didn't start it, they started it, which means they're not going to stop. And I'm glad of it. Chief among Johnson's antagonists is always controversial, Matt Gaetz, who is not at all sympathetic to Johnson's dilemma. He wants to create the chaos. He wants to create the mess. He wants to crash the party and crash the country while he's doing it. CNN is reporting that Florida lawmaker is targeting sitting House lawmakers Mike Bost and Tony Gonzalez, with Gaetz pushing back at the speaker. Gaetz said, I would love nothing more than to just go after Democrats. But if Republicans are going to dress up like Democrats in drag, I'm going to go after them too, because at the end of the day, we're not judged by how many Republicans we have in Congress. We're judged on whether or not we save the country. You may not be judged, Matt, but you will be elected by the number of Republicans you have. And if you don't get elected, you ain't fixing shit. The report adds that Johnson is sitting on a slim 2-seat margin in the House. The feud underscores how the razor-thin House majority has proven to be almost ungovernable, leading to a state of gridlock and internal GOP warfare that has defined the 118th Congress. Now, the battle has often pitted hardliners who advocate a no-compromise approach and want to go toe-to-toe with Democrats against many Republicans who believe they should aim for incremental victories at a time of divided government. And that's exactly right. You can't go in there and say, we want to win it all. And if we don't win it all, we'll take nothing. Because that's what the Republicans are doing. And how's it working for them? Well, it's not. It's fucking not working for them. It's going horribly for them. And I'm enjoying the fuck out of it, quite frankly. Let them tear themselves apart. Okay. We know that Laura Trump is a co-chair of the RNC. Another great move. She's going to drain all the money off for Donald Trump, and none of the down ballot people will get any fucking money. I love that too. Now, Al Cardenas, former chair of the Florida Republican Party, has come down hard on the rapid changes happening at the RNC, including mass layoffs and MAGA influences. Cardenas told MSNBC that he felt like he was at a funeral for the Republican Party as he mourned the drastic changes brought about since Laura Trump took over as co-chair. You know, 1854, the birth of the Republican Party. 2024, the demise of the Republican Party, he said. Continuing, but look, the RNC people need to understand what it does. You know, it recruits candidates. It works on voter registration. It works on turnout. It works on all the basics that a presidential campaign doesn't have the time, the resources to get involved with. If you're a candidate for public office in a lower strata state legislature, school board, etc., who are you going to call? Frankly, the answer is nobody. They have, they fired over 90 people. They're moving a small squad to integrate with presidential campaign by name only. They're concentrating on lawyers and election fraud. All the stuff that they looked at since then and have found nothing. Now, he goes on to say, we did that in Florida. We created a very same mechanism they're trying to do nationally. And you know what we did? We ended up with 3 arrests, all Republicans in the small village of the Villages, a retirement community. This is nonsense. I mean, it's only spending millions to perpetuate the fallacy that there was election fraud in 2020. That's all. That's all it is. But replacing the RNC and what it does to me, I've given it 40 years of my life. It breaks my heart. It takes away a major component of getting your communities involved in the political process. Yep, they're fucking it up. They are fucking it up for themselves. And again, you're worried about Donald Trump becoming president or even the Republicans taking the House or the Senate. How are they going to do that? They're running out of money. They're fighting amongst themselves. This is not an opportune situation for them to win fucking anything. And when we're talking about losers, we're winding things down here and got to have one name, a name that we're only going to be able to talk about through January of this year because she'll be gone. Representative Lauren Boebert, Colorado. She's in a political bind now that Ken Buck, whose seat she is seeking to fill in November, is leaving Congress early. And I'm convinced he did that just to shove it in her face. If she wants to run for that special election, she has to quit her job currently in the House of Representatives and then go run for the special election. Well, she's not going to do that. But if she doesn't do that, come November, when there's the general election, now she has to run against an incumbent. It was already almost impossible for her to win in the 4th District, and this is just going to make it harder. Observers say Boebert is at a disadvantage due to the fact that the special election to serve the remainder of Buck's term is being held the same day as the primary for the full term, a move the divisive ally of former President Trump argues was aimed specifically at hurting her. Probably was. But if anybody deserves to be hurt, it's that crazy bitch, or as Marjorie Taylor Greene called her, that little bitch. Now, Boebert, who already nearly lost re-election once in her current district, must now navigate even trickier political terrain in hopes of staying in Congress. Well, that's not going to work. She's not staying in Congress. This is like asking people to ticket split, but on steroids, said Republican political analyst Kelly Maher. When you're looking at ticket splitters, generally it's not the same name twice, right? Referring to the fact whoever runs to fill Buck's seat in short term will also likely be listed on the ballot in the race in the full term. You're asking people to vote for a different party down ballot, but she needs to be making the case that you should vote for an entirely different person down ballot while the same name is listed twice. That's going to be a little wild. That's going to be problematic for Miss Boebert. Boebert currently represents Colorado's 3rd district, but of course moved to the 4th district because she thought it would be easier. Nope, it's not easier. It's going to be harder. And she is fighting to keep her congressional career alive after announcing late last year that she would switch districts. Now, Buck announced Tuesday of last week that he would be leaving Congress earlier than expected at the end of the week. This did not make Lauren Boebert happy because it makes her life more fucking difficult, and I'm all for that. The announcement triggered a special election to fill the remainder of Buck's term, which Colorado Governor Jared Polis set for June 25th. Jared Polis, by the way, is a Democratic governor. And he set the date for the vote as the same day as the primary. And I guess that makes sense. If you're going to the polls, why send them there twice in a week? Let them do what they're going to do the first time around. Now, Boebert opted not to run in the special election, which would have required her to leave her current seat, citing in part the House GOP's already narrow majority. Each party will select their nominee to compete in the special election, given the district leans heavily Republican, whichever GOP nominee is chosen for the special will be considered the heavy favorite to fill out the remainder of Buck's term. Boebert slammed Buck's decision as a gift to the Uniparty and alleged that the establishment concocted a swampy backroom deal to try to rig an election. I'm winning by 25 points. No, you're not. Though members of the party agree that Boebert didn't have room to leave her House seat to try and compete in another special election, which would have triggered yet another special election and given Democrats the opportunity to win her current seat. Some say Boebert still faces an unenviable position. Oh, yeah. This is not going well. Essentially, what Lauren Boebert is going to be asking voters to do is to vote for somebody else in the special election, but then against that same person in the primary and instead vote for her. And that's definitely a hard ask. And that comes from Republican strategist Ryan Lynch. I wanted to mention something else. I talked about the money situation and how it's troubling for the Republicans. Just so you know, Joe Biden, while he's fighting back about his age and electability and all that stuff, he got $53 million in donations in February. A ton more than Donald Trump, a ton more than the RNC. So you can tell me about polls and all that sort of stuff, but he's collecting money hand over fist. Somebody's supporting that motherfucker. Don't believe the money or don't believe the polls. Follow the fucking money. And the money is going to Joe Biden. All right. We're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.